Welcome to Chapter 31 on multibody. This is probably one of my favorite chapters in the whole book. Multibodies covers a wide range of functionality in Solidworks. If you read the text, I'll give you a lot of warnings about multibodies, but here let me just show you some of what you can do with multibody models. One way, an easy way to create a multibody model is to start with disjoint sketch loops and extrude it. Now, when you start out, when you get a multi-body model like this, your feature manager is going to react in a different way. It's going to add a solid bodies folder. If you had surfaces in here as well, it would add a surface bodies folder. And this is how you can keep track of various types of bodies that you got in SolidWorks. But here, you can also take an existing body and split it. Now, if I use the regular cut, it's got to cut away one side, and we'll still only have two bodies. If we use a feature called split, it enables us to use that sketch as a split tool, and we can cut the bodies, and we can keep both sides. Now, you can name these, but you have to tell it which ones you want to keep, and click OK. Now we have three separate bodies, even though this one still looks like a single body. If we look at it from the side, we can see that it's got a line down it. And this is not just a split face, but if I turn on, using F8, turn on my visualization pane here, I can turn one of these bodies transparent, or I can change it to wireframe. Or, there's a lot of visualization type things that you can do that go on here with SolidWorks bodies. You can also take a body and let's just draw a sketch that goes on this back face. And I'm going to make this new feature bigger than everything else. And what's going to happen here is by default, the feature manager is set to merge result. That means it's going to take all of the various bodies, including the one I split, and merge them all into the new body. But it will only do bodies that it touches. So if I click this, now we're back to a single body. Those bodies merge back together. This one is they're all part of the same one. If I go back and edit this sketch, make this sketch a little bit smaller so that it only touches, say, that one. Now it has, it's a little bit different. And that's maybe not exactly what I intended, but we've got two bodies, that the small one that had been split off and the other one that had been merged together. There are some other tools that you can use that you can be more intentional about which ones that you want to merge together. If we go back and edit this feature, we can turn off the merge result, and now we're back to, or we've got four bodies now. Under Insert Features, we have the Combine feature has three functions: add, subtract, and common, which is essentially the Boolean intersect. You can select bodies that you want to combine, but the bodies have to touch. So you can't say, take this body and that body and say combine them, because it's not going to work. You'll get a little error message here that says unable to create a single body. But if we took this one out, put this one in, and add that, now we'll get a result, and this body on the end will remain by itself. Another thing I should point out here is that you can change the color of individual bodies, which really helps a lot when you go to when you're doing body management kind of things and you need to see quickly, be able to identify bodies. Another tool that exists is something called the intersect. It's got an unfortunate name because the combine feature has this common option, which really works like an intersect, but what the intersect does is it takes a list of solids and surface bodies, and it uses the surfaces to cut the solids and the solids to cut the solids, and you can think of it as joining and cutting all at the same time. So you can select various parts of the model that you want to keep. Let's give an example of this. If I have a let's just make a crazy surface that goes like that. Okay, and we'll use an extrude to just make this mid-plane. Make sure it goes through everything. We'll say okay. And maybe we've even got a plane in here. Well, we do have a plane. That plane will cut some of the existing solids, but let's move it also like this. Okay, so now we'll go to Insert, Features, Intersect, and I can pick the solids and also the surfaces, and as I pick them, click the Intersect button. Now I can select the parts of it that I either want to keep or to remove. Even though they're parts of different bodies, I don't have to do them all at the same time. It works out very nicely, and if you have a lot of different pieces of your puzzle that go together, then the Intersect tool is great for pulling all of those together into a single part. There's some things that you need to be aware of as well if you're talking about multi-body models. Let's make another body out here in the middle of nowhere. You can't do things like put fillets on the edges of different bodies in the same feature. Okay, so there are just some things like that that you're going to have to be careful about. You can, however, have a cut. Let's make a slot that goes like this. And we can make a cut and tell it to go so far. And then you can change the feature scope. You can tell it all bodies or just the selected bodies. So right now it's using auto select, so I could tell it just this body, and even though the preview ran down here, it didn't cut the other body. Let's change that, clear selections, and just select this body. So again, even though the cut intersected this piece, it didn't actually cut it. In the course of this chapter, you'll just find that there's a ton of functionality. There's also things that you need to be aware of, like don't try to use multi-bodies like it's an assembly. Okay, it's just the wrong thing to do. You wind up with a huge feature tree that's got all of your parts in it. You know, and there's no way to take one part out of that. You just wind up with a real mess. And you can't, there's certain things like assembly drawings that become much more difficult to do. If you corrupt one part, you lose everything. You can't, it's much harder to reuse parts and information. It's just a lot safer if you use assemblies the way they were intended and use multi-body parts the way they were intended. Don't look at multi-body parts as being a shortcut, but rather as being some additional power that you have to do some additional things, not just make things easier. Because if you think it's making it easier, it's really not. It's just adding a lot of work. In any case, enjoy chapter 31. It's one of my favorites in the whole book, and I'll see you back here for an introduction to chapter 32.